world reunite, it's a must. Hold on to hope, we can overload, we can break the code with a single note. Sing out for the world to hear that our time is now, no more for tears. I looked into my son's eyes, a new day in a new light. Lift the veil and dwell so peaceful. Come together, one world, one people.
Eat to eat, nothing could beat us. Jealousy is more dangerous than diabetes. See this unity? Imagine what it looked like. You would think we would do whatever it took, right? I would do anything for this good life. We could do anything if we unite. Come on.
Young native, you are my savior. Say your prayer for our inspiration. From the block to your reservation. Any color, all my relations. From the basement, worldwide invasion. Every day we're painting our faces. Fighting back but learning our language. Dancing our dances, saying our prayers.
There we go. And it looks like, hey, welcome in. It's good to see everybody. Welcome back, Kiyamatara. And Akoe. Hope I'm pronouncing that relatively well. And it's great to see you, Jane. Welcome back. It's as always, it's great to see you. I hope everyone is doing well today. What do we have? There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the news, but you know, you all already know about that stuff. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. Like usual, you guys get your news from other sources, other streamers are better about talking about that stuff. But we are going to talk about some stuff today. We got things on the list to cross off the list, and probably that this might be one of the things that we start off with. A better view of that move. Do we have lag? I'd believe it. Oh wow. That is a terrible connection. Internet's so bad. No storm, or anything going on. Doesn't seem like my PC is really that bad. It is a really terrible internet connection. Well, it's a windy day. Hold on, everyone. If we're having some lag, what I'm gonna do is just open up my bummer. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna connect to a different internet source. But that means that I'm gonna have to end stream and start stream again. I'll lose internet, probably. But don't go anywhere. It should be really fast. I should be right back, hopefully. But I'm going to go ahead and give this a whirl. See if we can improve this internet connection. Oh, that's funny. Now that I've pulled up this thing, my internet here is fine. Oh. Thinks I'm live right now. This thinks that I'm live right now. There we go. Good. Now let me look at my connection's way better now. And it should be consistent. Doesn't matter how bad the wind gets, I should be able to maintain a pretty consistent connection. Is that better, Jane? Do I have less lag? It says that I've got 0. Or maybe I'm not actually. Oh, no. Okay, good. There we go. Good. Let me. There we go. But I need to refresh that. No, that still doesn't show that I have any viewers or that I have any elapsed time that I've been streaming. So, there we go. Now it's caught up. Good. There we go. Thank you everybody for your patience while we were getting that switched over. Yeah, that's a much better connection. It looks like all of my numbers are green all the way up. Good. All right, cool. Right. So, yeah, one of the first things that I'll want to talk about. Actually, let me pull up my notes stuff that I wanted to not forget about. No, just the things. Okay. Right. So one of the first things that I do want to talk about has to do with posthumanism and Papatuanuku. Himatara, you can tell me if my pronunciations are really terrible. Please feel free to critique me. I would like to learn. I don't mind learning. I want to say things correctly. But this is something else that I think is worth talking about, and maybe I'll start with this. Rather, I don't know if anybody's seen this yet. Really? Excellent. Thank you. I was actually practicing after last stream ended. I went back and watched the VOD and went through and looked up some of the terms that you were talking about in chat and made some notes and practiced the pronunciation of some of them. So I'm glad that it's paid off a little bit. I was pondering dialectics, Imatara says, and it made me realize something that probably led to revision and eventually collapse of communist movements. Sorry if this is a long comment. Oh no, by all means. Put a paragraph in chat if that's what you need to do. Several paragraphs. That is quite okay. We might could just talk about that more specifically instead of getting into this, because I did not have the chance to read through much of this. I did start. I probably got about halfway through the. No, I guess I was. Didn't realize I was. Okay, so. Yeah, so I probably get about halfway through. It's much shorter than I realized. I should have just finished reading. I'm done with it. But I started reading it, and then I got about halfway through, and then was like, yeah, I really want to talk about this on stream. So instead of finishing reading it, I went on to finish some of the other stuff. All of the time, I have just lists and lists and lists of things to read, review, to know just a little bit about sometimes. Right. A good example is I finally got around to looking up Curtis Yarvin. I think Matt had mentioned Curtis Yarvin somewhere in one of the previous streams, and I think that's the kind of person that I really need to know about. They've got some interesting takes, and not all of them I disagree with. A lot of them, a lot of them I disagree with, but there are some takes that I kind of agree with in a few ways, especially the critiques of democracy. And I think that's where it came up as we were talking about the problems of democracy, the paradoxes of democracy. It turns out this weirdo right-wing Curtis Yarvin and I have nearly identical critiques of democracy, which is kind of surprising. But But aside from that critique, we don't really share much else. It seems. But that's okay. So, okay, here it is. If the revolutionary left succeeds in expelling or silencing its left-wing critics, anarchists and left communists, it does not abolish the need for an antithesis, right? It not abolish the need for an antithesis, replaces it with a worse one. Does not abolish the need for an antithesis, it replaces it with a worse one. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the dialectic. Right, you don't abolish capitalism when you dispose of dissenting voices from the left, you strengthen it. Yes, I completely agree with this so far. Completely agree with this so far. I'd like to see where we're going, though. The decolonial critic, the anarchist creates a productive conflict. This is of a Marxist thesis and an anarchist antithesis. Has the potential to be a richer and more robust form of communism, one that has seriously grappled with the problem of power. For example, a synthesis might incorporate Marxist class analysis while adapting anarchist prefigurative politics and horizontal organizing models. Yes, 100% agree with that. When this doesn't happen, when the dialectic within the movement gets purged, it leads to stagnation. Right. Situation that we're in right now. Stagnation. Or the reproduction of just the exact same thing. The reproduction of repetition. Which leaves a stagnated body going up against a far stronger, far more dominant antithesis constantly. Which right as and I think that this is what you're talking about. As this cycle continues, we make capitalism and colonialism stronger, all the while stagnating only right. Okay, with anarchism and other leftists present the dialectic stays internal and the revolutionary project internal to the revolutionary project, preventing the default antithesis from being liberalism. Right. It's internal rather than being liberalism, which will dilute or betray the revolutionary goals. Liberalism is a counter-revolutionary antithesis. It does not push Marxism to be more radical. It pushes it to be more accommodating to capital. And if we truly believe in dialectics, we must realize by now that what this attempted purging of the healthy antithesis led up to, why the USSR stagnated, fell into revision, and eventually collapsed entirely. Spend some time unpacking that one. Yes, the suppression from capitalist powers was also a major factor. Downfall too, but just as important was its abandonment of the dialectic. Our Amare stands strong despite suppression from outside, including literal firebombings, because the internal structure is strong and avoids stagnation. Good. Okay, good. There's a lot that I want to reaffirm and just agree with. there's a little bit there that I want to delve into a little bit more deeply, not because I think I want to push back against it, just because I'm not entirely sure I understand entirely what you're on about. I want to make sure. But no, illusions. I did not see that Charlie Kirk had been killed at his event in Utah. If that's real news, then that is very newsworthy. Interesting, but this is far more important to me. what Kiyomitara is on about up here is far more interesting to me than that news. Sorry. So if the revolutionary left succeeds in expelling or silencing its left-wing critics, anarchist left communist, it does not abolish the need for an antithesis. It replaces it with a worse one. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the dialectic. You don't abolish capitalism when you dispose the dissenting voices from the left, you strengthen it. Yeah, this is where I'm in complete agreement still, and everything above that, I'm in complete agreement. I have no notes. No notes. You've stated it concisely, perfectly. The colonial critic, the anarchist, creates a productive conflict. So this is one of my favorite combinations, right? Is these two things working together. So when I am in other people's stream, in other streamers' streams, almost all of the time, I'm in the streams of communists. And I spend almost no time on Twitch in the streaming channels of anarchists. And it's because I am attracted to exactly what you're on about. This particular kind of dialectic that has the class consciousness, class struggle, but is constantly looking for forms of oppression so that those can be eliminated. Because class consciousness alone doesn't do that. The thing that's still missing from this, right? And there's still a lot more that I want to say about what you've put in there, but the very first thing that pops into my mind that is still missing is something which is necessarily decolonial and necessarily anti-racist. And I am the kind of anarchist that believes that anarchism should necessarily include those, that we don't have to be more explicit about that. The problem is that other anarchists seem to continually, well, anarchists in general, I shouldn't say other because I suspect that I do too, constantly fall into habits or into default modes in which they prioritize certain frameworks, and those frameworks are colonial and or racist. So it's I think that this is one of my favorite forms of synthesis, is anarchism and well, it was communism and anarchism. It doesn't matter which side they're on, because I think that each is beneficial. They're really extremely helpful viewpoints, but each has its own limitations and weaknesses, right? That there's more that needs to be enunciated clearly, that anarchism and communism sometimes don't always necessarily maybe a libertarian or atomist Marxist perspective. Well, libertarianism is going to run into the same problems as anarchism, almost necessarily. The difference, the biggest difference to me, usually is that libertarianism is more likely to adopt liberal ideologies and to be more okay with certain kinds of exploitation. Rent is a perfect example. That libertarians think that taxes are bad, but they don't think that rent is necessarily bad. They might think that it's okay for us to have initiatives where we're feeding people as long as it doesn't come out of my tax dollars. But they're also okay with food remaining behind a paywall. Whereas anarchists should necessarily see those relationships as exploitative and want to eliminate them. The libertarian might not. The autonomist Marxist, I don't know that I know the distinction of what an autonomist Marxist is, actually. So let me just take a moment and look that up. On self-activity rather than the body politic. Working class. Self-activity. So, well, that sounds like prefiguration. So maybe from just the quick few seconds that I've been looking at this definition that's provided by the AI, this sounds similar to prefiguration. So maybe there's some value to further unpacking this idea and doing some more research on what this is. So thank you for bringing that up, Jane. I always appreciate more stuff to look at. Libertarian Marxism. Okay. Well, libertarian Marxism is still going to maintain. Well, maybe, I'm not sure about that. Yeah, maybe. Right. I'd have to do a little bit more digging and get more nuanced before I could give you say yay or nay on that. In Mare Maicoero, every voice, including those that disagree, is part of the process of reaching consensus. In fact, disagreement is not only allowed, it is encouraged. A speech without an opposing view is incomplete. I really appreciate that idea. Speech without an opposing view is incomplete. It is the antithesis that sharpens the thesis, producing a synthesis that is more durable and respected by the community. Yes. I think that's I think I completely agree with that sentence. Welcome in, Nisa. It's so good to see you. I hope that you're doing well. In my neck of the woods, we have a saying about libertarians. I love weed, but frickin' poor people. Right. We're of course, we are of course more more colorful. And that's I should probably look more into libertarian Marxism, but that's the thing with libertarianism. It's always Mills's harm principle is the distinguishing for me. Maybe I've categorized the ideologies wrong systemically. But for me, as I understand the primary difference between anarchism and libertarianism, it is Mills's harm principle. Anarchists don't care about Mills's harm principle, right? That we presuppose the state, and this is something that I've talked about with Mills's harm principle in general, is in every formation of Mills's harm principle, it presupposes a state. It also presupposes an antagonistic framework between the state and the individual, right? Which is something that I think is already a mistake. We're already off on all of the wrong feet. All of our foundations are askew, right? That these are precepts that we presuppose in any ideological framework. But that in Mills's harm principle is always, always, always going to permit abuses of individuals when the abuser is not doing direct harm, right? If the abuser is a landlord who has a right to rent and is able to kick somebody out of their house, that the harm that's being done is a real moral harm. That's a real moral fact about the world, is that the landlord who evicts the tenant is doing harm to the tenant. Necessarily, that is a moral relationship that is incontrovertible. Always necessarily. But in a libertarian framework, the landlord has the right to their property. They have a right to do harm so long as it's not direct harm. And that Mills's harm principle is what interferes with our ability to dismantle all of these oppressive frameworks, primarily. My conception of libertarianism is the degree in which power is distributed or dispersed. Okay, Jane, do you think you could clarify or maybe give examples of the distribution of power? Right, because libertarianism, I guess, is kind of a big spectrum, right? There are libertarians who don't think that we should have firefighters, right? They don't think that we should have police, firefighters. We don't have anybody who builds roads. We don't have anybody who processes water for potability. If anybody does those things, they're all private sector things that are done that people take upon themselves to do. And some other people might pay them for those services, but that there is no centralized force to do any of those things. But some libertarians like the idea of having police and firefighters and roads and municipalities that we would pay for, but they just don't like the idea of taxes paying for it. But maybe I'm being far too reductive in how I view this. Is something that I've been thinking about quite a bit, trying to be a little bit reflective of myself, is that I have a tendency to make caricatures of people that don't think like me when it comes to conservatives or liberals, or when it comes to anyone who's not left. I believe I'm starting to identify in myself a tendency to dismissively make straw men, I guess, out of the ideologies. So I'm beginning to be suspicious that maybe I'm doing this thing where I oversimplify, or I reduce, or I'm not doing due diligence in steel manning the ideas of my interlocutor, because that's what we should be doing, is engaging in dialogue in a way, and that's exactly what Kiyomatara is talking about with this idea of having every statement has something that pushes against it. When I am helping my students with their their application essay. The whole point of it is that they make a morally defensible argument defending some moral position. Whatever moral position they want to choose to defend, I will help them defend it. And what this entails is whatever it is that they want to write about, I encourage that. And after I encourage it, I attack it, right? And it's not that I'm trying to erode the confidence of the student. I'm trying to help the student be confident in their assertions, so that because I've given them some support and told them that their ideas are valid in the first place. So later when I come back and attack their arguments, they understand the process that they're supposed to be going through is that they're supposed to push back with the other tools that I've given them, right? That they understand that they have to figure out how to make their own argument more robust in the face of the critique. Right, as part of the process. I don't remember what got me talking on about that, but well, thank you, Nisa. I appreciate you saying that. I do what I can. Oh, so let's back up to here. My conception, and the converse, authoritarianism is the degree in which power is centralized or monopolized. Okay. I see. So, okay, so you're framing authoritarianism and libertarianism as poles along a spectrum, which I think is actually kind of not a bad idea. Historically, libertarianism and anarchism have been used synonymously. Yes, that is absolutely true too. This is a reality that I think a lot of libertarians are not aware of. In fact, when I was in college, I had a professor who was a libertarian, had a whole libertarian club that he wanted me to come and be a part of. But I told him that I was an anarchist. And then he was like, well, I don't know that you're going to fit then. And I was like, wait, what? wait, what? Right? And when I was like, well, what do you mean? Anarchism and libertarianism are really close together. This college professor, who was the head of the libertarian club on campus, was like, no, libertarianism and anarchism are completely different, and they're nowhere near similar. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm not a good fit for that club after all. My dialectic ramble is part of my article I'm working on. Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Kimatara. I really, really appreciate it. Really fantastic. So far, it's really excellent content. Some of this I'm probably just going to go back and reread again in a minute, just to have it out again on stream, because it's really good stuff. It's called Disposability as Counter-Revolution. Huh. Disposability. Right. I also reference how the Workers' Communist League in New Zealand literally wrote to their members they had to abandon the term communist entirely because of how many parties mistreated or ignored marginalized communities, and that pushed so many away from the communism in New Zealand. That's not the first time I've heard that. Actually, that's I want to say. Maybe I'll just continue reading. It's instead of letting my mind wander. We'll have enough time for waxing philosophical later. Let me finish reading this. Here's what the Workers' Communist League said before changing the left currents. Changing to left currents. Okay. However, we believe the word communist is not suitable as a definition for our political program and practical work because the word communist has negative associations with monopolistic, patriarchal, over hierarchic, racist and or national, chauvinistic, and environmentally exploitative actions of communist parties in power and many communist. That's, I mean, that's actually kind of a good pushback, that there is a historical materialism. There's a lot of baggage that comes along with communism that really takes too long to explain and re-explain and re-explain and re-explain over and over every time that we're trying to talk about this. And it's the distinction that I used to spend a lot of time making in the classroom or outside of the classroom was, okay, if you want to talk about communism, what do you mean? Do you mean Marxism or communism, the political philosophy? Because those are different things. Or are you talking about governments which have called themselves communist, which don't have to do with either one of those other things, right? What is it when we're talking about communism? What do you mean before I entertain your criticisms or your critiques or anything that you have to say about it? Because I can spend a whole lot of time defending something that when you have something else completely different in mind, right? And then we're both just wasting our time and our breath. Disposability, because thank you for explaining the disposability. I at first I was like, I'm curious about that, but then I made some assumptions. I was like, well, okay, there's a few things that I think that they could mean by this. But thank you for explaining. That was the first thing that tripped me up. Disposability, because with far too many communist parties, marginalized people, and radical dissenters were treated as disposable, which, as Workers' Communist League points out, and my arguments of dialectics points out, is an enemy of communist revolution. Yes, and this is the same problem that we see in the Black Panther Party and with other kinds of organizing. Even I heard Chaz and some of the other temporary autonomous zones that have popped up and that have gain some kind of prevalence or some kind of notoriety. As soon as they do, it becomes apparent that they have these same kind of problems, that they're the organization, as it grows, it begins to treat its members as disposable members whose criticisms of their sexism are just disregarded, whose criticisms of their chauvinism are disregarded, their criticisms of their sexism are disregarded, or these things are punished, right? When somebody says, well, I think the way that we're doing this is wrong, those dissenters are punished, ostracized, or excommunicated from the groups. And rather than that being cohesive, it's cancerous, right? And this is actually Anissa and I had a conversation about this months ago, where we were talking about the power of disagreement. That if you have a situation in which disagreement is not permitted, you don't have anything closely resembling truth in any real philosophical, meaningful sense. That for you to for there to be truth, there has to be some kind of back and forth, because we make assumptions about what other people believe. Street Cat Love came in a while ago over on YouTube, and I forgot to say hi to you. Hi, Street Cat Love. It's great to see you. I hope you're doing well. Okay. Let's just do, well, I'm taking a break, pause anyway. We'll do it here. And just we have enough to talk about. We have enough going on. We have enough going on today that we don't need to entertain Aku. We don't need to spend any time wasting any of our time talking about Aku. Who never came here to learn in the first place, right? Was only here to disrupt, and so we're done. We're done with that. Thanks for coming in and finalizing that, Aku. I appreciate that. Another great. Oh, okay. I see. Go back and read this too. Okay, that's such a simple title. Disposability is counter-revolution. It's so powerful. There's a lot. I love something that's a concise package like that. Disposability is counter-revolution. Really quite on point. This is some pushback to that. Let me come back to that in a second. Hold on. No truth, no consensus, no coalition, no progress. Absolutely, Nisa. Totally down. Yeah, absolutely. We should talk about Chaz sometime. Because I think that autonomous zones like those really do help us understand the pros and cons, the right and wrong way, mostly the wrong way to do it. And I don't want to come off as sounding too critical about this. Because I've never tried to establish an autonomous zone. Right? I understand the difficulties of working with lots of other people. I've done organizing before, and I understand that organizing is hard. It really, really has a lot of challenges when you have a loose collection of people whose ideas about what we want to accomplish are only loosely aligned. And how all of those individuals intend to go about solving their own ideas or accomplishing their own goals are all going to be completely disparate. And there's some advantage to that if we can identify the advantage. But most organizations and most groups don't. And I've been there. I specifically remember when I was trying to get an organization together to support the Occupy Wall Street movement on my college campus as a college student, that there was one other person in particular who was charismatic, who was passionate, who had lots of drive, and they wanted to be as engaged and as proactive as I was. But some of the things that they wanted to do turned off a large number of the people who were showing up to support the movement. And what ended up happening is we kind of worked around behind this person's back to omit them, rather than us all taking the time to recognize what those differences are and maybe try to appreciate them. We found the person to be a little bit annoying and difficult to deal with. So instead of just dealing with them, we didn't. And that's something that I look back on as a mistake, right? We were able to get together, work together to accomplish great stuff. And what I did in that group and with that organization, I think, taught me a lot about organizing and demonstrating and trying to support those kinds of initiatives. But I think I made some mistakes, And that was one of them, that there was somebody who brought difference to the table. And rather than me taking the time to recognize the possibility that that difference could help the group in some very important way, I just worked around it. We all collectively as a group just decided to work around this individual and to just, we set up different, we all agreed that we were going to use this app to meet and organize. And then we were like, well, we're going to use this app instead and just not tell that one person, right? That kind of stuff, which is shitty. That's not a nice, kind, caring thing to do to somebody. But yeah, no, absolutely. Mistakes can be powerful, and I'm not beating myself up about it. I'm trying to just drive the point home, right? That that in my zeal, in my desire to accomplish something, right? I saw difference as an obstacle rather than right. And that's what we were talking about originally, Nisa, is that differences are not ever obstacles. Actually, differences are always solutions to problems that we haven't properly identified yet, right? That when we have those differences, that is the solution, is in the differences that we have. That's what's morally significant about our existences, is that we have differences. That's what makes life worth living, is the differences. Why, then, have we been conditioned to see difference as the problem, as something to be avoided, as something that we should hide in ourselves, and something that we should discourage, right? No, absolutely, Nisa. I appreciate that. I think there's a point where difference becomes an obstacle. I do think there's a point where difference becomes an obstacle. I think that's possible. I guess we should explore that, huh? Well, I mean, yes, differences become an obstacle. I won't work with fascists. I'm not going to work with a homophobe or with a transphobe or, right, there are differences that are irreconcilable. Yeah, if the difference is right to life, the serious and potential, obstacle, yeah, absolutely. Good. I missed this comment. The libertarians in the U.S. are just anarcho-capitalists. Yes, overwhelmingly, Jane. Libertarianism is an inherently left-wing thing, right? And that's why I took the time to be self-reflective in that way, and because the problem is the people who call themselves libertarian that I am exposed to. I also rationally understand that libertarians in other places other than the United States probably represent libertarianism better. And that part of my distaste or disdain for libertarianism doesn't have to do with the ideology of libertarianism so much as it has to do with the people who aren't left at all, who call themselves libertarian, the people who are anarcho-capitalist, which, again, is, to me, just incoherent. That people's basic necessities are behind a paywall is necessarily exploitative. It is a power dynamic that is necessarily unjust. Period. There is no way that you can ever have people's material needs moderated or mediated by a paywall and that not be oppressive necessarily. So anarcho-capitalism just really, I struggle to understand, as somebody who tries really hard to be an understander of things. It's difficult. My question with every homophobe or transphobe is, do they actually believe what they think? They believe because they have agency and choice, and I want to give them the grace to change their minds or not. Okay, I mean that's absolutely fair too. And I struggled several years ago when probably 5 or 6 years ago, I started to really become left, to be honest. And even if I look back 10 or 15 years ago, I called myself anarchist. I understood anarchism theoretically, but I certainly didn't understand it practically enough. That I was living my life in a leftist way, right? I was still watching Jon Stewart and thinking that Jon Stewart was as left as it was gonna get. I didn't realize that there were people who were actually actively in politics who saw Jon Stewart as far right of them, right? So when I made that transition a few years ago, it became clear that I was going to have to pretend to not have those views. I was going to have to mask myself around certain family members or certain friends, or I was going to have to reevaluate my relationships to those people. And there's still some conflict with how I feel about this, because I went through about a 5 or 6 month period where I was just posting very flagrantly inflammatory stuff in order to elicit a response from my friends and my family. I was posting and saying, and I was being really loud and aggravating about it. And people that were willing to engage in dialogue, even though we disagreed, were people that withstood the test. But there were a lot of people who were like, no, I just want to be racist. No, I just want to be able to demean women whenever I want to, however I want to. And I had to tell those people, if you continue to do that, I'm not going to be in your life anymore. And ties were severed, bridges were burned, and I don't think that that was the wrong choice for me, necessarily. I think that I made the right choice for me. But I also recognize that that separation alienates me from the potential of ever changing those people's mind, or from the opportunity to demonstrate to them how their ideology is wrong. A complete severing, with that bridge completely burned, there's no communication, there's no opportunity for them to grow and change. So that's something that I still think about quite a lot. Those family members that I've cut out, the friends that I no longer talk to. Libertarians in the U.S. is like communists in the USSR. Yeah. Communist, yeah. Is also reflecting my social agency when it comes to those communities, and that's where the difference becomes an obstacle. Yeah, right. And that's and why I say that I think that it was right for me is I was having difficulty trying to straddle both positions, trying to understand the world materially, dialectically, in a way that was radically seeking out oppression to dismantle it, and liberalism because to be able to have a conversation with those people, I have to be able to think like those people and put myself in their shoes. And at the time, switching back and forth between frameworks was inhibiting my ability to really understand the world dialectically. Now that I've spent a lot of time understanding the world dialectically, straddling back and forth between those viewpoints is not a problem for me. It's become comfortable, second nature for me to be able to slide back and forth between, almost too comfortable actually, in some ways, because sometimes I still watch Jon Stewart and don't catch the lib shit that he says until after the fact, or somebody else will point it out and I'll be like, man, I was laughing at that joke and I shouldn't have been. Welcome in, Matt. It's good to see you. I don't know that you're third. Well, I banned the other person, and Illusions only wanted to talk about Charlie Kirk's murder, and I didn't want to. So but I guess you didn't count either one of them, anyways. Yeah, Jon Stewart disappointed me on Palestine too. Yeah, and that's the thing. Jon Stewart is still one of the best figures that we have to look up to in American politics, right? And that's really sad. He's a professional comedian who has made a career out of being a satirist, not a political commentator. Right? The political commentator-ness is a status that he evolved after being able to competently embarrass enough people on live television or in interviews and whatnot. But is still highly problematic, right? Still doesn't have a lot of the right takes. Still insulates the quote unquote progressives in power who all sit around with their hands in their laps, twiddling their thumbs, doing nothing all day as we descend into fascism, right? All of the people who are standing around watching this happen, even though they literally have the power to stop this, right? Jon Stewart is still protecting and insulating and glazing those people up, still making transphobic jokes, pronoun jokes, still doesn't have the right takes on a lot of stuff. But also, who do we have who is nationally known that's even remotely as good as Jon Stewart, right? So far as exposure, so far as not having completely shit politics, still feels so conflicted because he's one of the most radical TV voices and still falls so short. Yeah, it's like it's the Bernie Sanders problem. Right, Bernie Sanders is one of the best politicians in the United States, despite the fact that he's not a good politician. He doesn't have good politics. The things that he wants to do for America are not progressive. They're certainly not left. They're not even socialist, really. He gets called a sock dem, and he's barely even, right? But is one of the best that we've got. So it's, but I don't know. I don't want to just Debbie down. And I also need to not use that gendered phrase. That's one that I haven't been able to completely eradicate. But I don't want to be a downer. I don't want to just naysay about It's just so stacked against us. We're just so fucking cooked. Libs will gaslight and say he spoke up, but he didn't say anything about the administration in 2024 at all. Right. Well, it disappeared during Trump's whole first campaign. Jon Stewart was like, well, maybe I should come out of retirement, and then just didn't. Right? Didn't have anything to say, didn't have really any social media presence, didn't have any TV presence. Just abandoned. Oh, absolutely, Matt. Thank you for stopping by. We'll see you later. Maybe you'll stop back after your meetings. There's so many representatives in Congress, people who are in assisted living facilities. They don't work, but they still have the job. And their families will campaign for them to keep the money going on. None of those voters' voices are being represented at all. I love you, Nisa. That's fucking hilarious. Debbie Downward Dog, all I want. Nice. I should I've been streaming for a long enough time. I should do the shout outs. Free Cat Love stopped by, and a different. I thought I was going to just be able to do it, but while I'm doing this, there's a quick something that I wanted to do before we launch back and continue on and talk about what we're talking about. I just want to do a quick interruption. I want to do a quick interruption because this is kind of funny, and I think you all will think it's kind of funny. While I'm figuring out how to do the shout out, and then we'll come back and talk more about what we're talking about. Yeah, electoral politics is something that I have a hard time taking seriously at all anymore, for exactly that reason. No, that doesn't look right. Huh. This was supposed to be a quick thing. Somebody adjusted some of my settings. That's all right. Well, we'll play it. This is Jesse Wells. They make music, and their music is actually pretty cool. I found them on TikTok, so you can find them on TikTok. I think it's by the same name, or you can find them here on YouTube.
Well, if you're looking for purpose in the current circus, if you're seeking respect and attention, if you're in need of a gig that'll help you feel big, come with me and put some folks in detention. Just last week was kind of rough. I put a kid in cuffs and zip-tied a woman to a van. We can sneak around town hunting working folks down. I hear they get a great benefit plan. Join ICE, boy, ain't it nice? Join ICE, take my advice. If you're lacking control and authority, come with me and hunt down minorities. Join ICE. Well, I failed the academy, the cops weren't having me, the army didn't sound that fun, so I found me a paramilitary operation that was keen to hand me a gun. See, I got picked on in school, I never felt that cool, there's a hole in my soul that just rages. All the women turned me down, they told me I was a clown. Well, won't you look at me now, I'm putting folks in cages. At ICE, they got great hours. Join ICE for respect and power. They got a sign-on bonus of 50 grand. They're in need of you needing to feel like a man. Join ICE. Join ICE.
Yeah, that's not a bad song, huh? Yeah, I think it checks out. And oh, it didn't work. Right, oh, that's why. Because I put the what is the command? I made a career. Oh, am I muted? I was muted for a minute, but I should be unmuted now. First love that I made. Sure. I was there. I made a command for Street Cat Love. Oh, no worries. That's the problem. That's part of the problem. But it's just working, and it's working. Okay. That's what that message is supposed to do. Why my commands are not? My timers are going on, and this one worked. Hey, there you are, Street Cat Love. Yeah, I was just trying to give you a shout out. Showed up over on YouTube, and then I forgot to even say hi to you, really. Welcome in. I hope you're doing well, Street Cat Love. Yeah, for some reason my Firebot commands are not working. Oh, that's why. Figured it out. There was something on my checklist that I was supposed to do when I first started stream, and I forgot. Oh, yeah, no, I did. I put the thing in chat, and it didn't work. Okay. Now it should. There you go.
Fuck the police! They can't control! We gotta take it back! Everyone get up and let's go!
I added some sound alerts too that nobody has gotten to hear because I forgot to turn on the to connect the Firebot. But now the Firebot's now Firebot's back up and running, so all the commands should be working. Sorry everybody that my dogs are losing their mind. We've got somebody in the driveway that's hanging out. My roommate is talking to them, and so every time the dogs remember that there's somebody in the front yard, they lose their minds again. All right, got that going. All right, so let's get back into the philosophical stuff that we were talking about. Well, the political, mostly we were talking about political stuff. I will double down again on the anti-electoralism. I've mentioned this before too, that recently I've had a hard time engaging with protests because all of the protest organizing in my area, it's all very it's all about the electoral politics, all about the Democrats, and it's all about how we can support the Democrats and how we're going to get Democrats elected into office. And so every time I show up to different various protests or different organizing groups, I just leave with a bad taste in my mouth, because I understand that electoral politics is practically useless. It's not going to give us rights. It's not going to give us the kinds of civil liberties that we need to shift the material conditions such that we can seize the means of production, right? Because that's an end goal. I'm an anarchist, but I understand communism is the vehicle by which we get to where we need to get to, which is why I absolutely support communists and communism and those kind of endeavors, because seizing the means of production is what we need to do. But before we can seize the means of production, we need to be able to take care of people. That's the big thing that we're deficient on. And I think that counts as prefiguration, that we should be figuring out how to liberate people. And liberating people requires that they have a secure place where they can rest their head. They have a guarantee that their meals are going to be taken care of. Right? That's what people need. That they need to know that there are medical professionals that they can go to get medical care, and they can get the medicines that they need. Those things need to be guaranteed so that people can have freedom, so that we can seize the means of production. Because as long as they can hold people's rent and food and medical access over their heads, we can't seize the means of production. That's the first immediate obstacle, I think, that stands in our way. The annoying thing about being a philosophy nerd and a writer is every time you read one philosophical article or book, it always references another which you want to write about, which leads to another, and so on. You hardly ever finish anything. Yes. I still haven't finished reading the Gelderloos article that I started reading 2 frickin' months ago. And in the meantime, I've started reading this book over here that you can't see the title of. The book over here is Candide, which I've started reading, on top of the fact that I finally got these books in, and I started reading this one because it's as soon as I opened this one, it started to immediately speak to me and resonate, and this one has come in, and this is all about organizing, and I really cannot wait to read this one either. So yes, that problem. Real, recognize real, yeah. Voltaire, yes, it is Voltaire. Those are the recent additions to my reading list, and I still haven't. I need to read up more on Nick Land, because I still don't know practically anything about Nick Land or his ideas. I need to. Who's the other? Douglas Lane. Somebody brought up Douglas Lane in chat, and I wrote a note down about it, and I don't even remember what the context was. I have no idea who this person is, but it's somebody that I clearly need to research, and I just haven't got to. But I'm getting there, and I think that hopefully I'm not floating my boat too early. But hopefully I should be getting to a place. I should be getting to a place where I can start knocking some of this stuff out and crossing things off my list. I'm coming to a realization that the way that I was living, the way that I was being, the way that I was treating myself for several months over the last year was not really very healthy or helpful for me or my mental health. I was in a state where I felt like I could never accomplish all of the things that I wanted to accomplish. And I had this yearning to want to accomplish the things, and so I kept stressing myself about the things that I wasn't accomplishing. So I was trying to do more rather than trying to finish the things that I was doing. I was trying to do more than I could. I've upon some reflection over the last few weeks, I realized that the way that I've been treating myself hasn't been healthy or helpful. So I'm going to give myself some grace and some patience, and as I've started to do so already, I've already become a lot more productive, and I've been better at managing my time and doing the things that I really care about and accomplishing the things that I really, really want to accomplish. So I'm already in a position where I feel better about myself, and I already am, and like it's almost like there's a fog clearing over my mental health that I didn't realize was there in the first place. So I think that over the next month I should be able to start getting some of these things ticked off. And if not, that's okay. I have a full plate. I'm a professor that I teach at 2 different universities, and I take the time to stream 2 times a week. I'm a busy person. And I just need to learn to be okay with the fact that that I'm busy, and that sometimes I'm not going to accomplish things, and sometimes I do, and I just need to be patient and realize that everything in its time, right? So we need to develop municipal scale general assemblies and strengthen extant unions. I think you mean existent or extant, or create new unions, right? Yes, that's also part of the prefiguration process, Jane. Absolutely, that we need to develop municipal scales, general assemblies, and strengthen unions, and that's part 2 of why I've had difficulty getting engaged in the protests in electoral politics. It's a kind of organizing, and it's a kind of organizing that's adjacent to the kind of organizing that I would like to do, but it's also not, right? The organizing that's done for electoral politics has a certain kind of end, and because of the end, it has a certain kind of procedure and structure, and that is inherently bad, right? So in a lot of cases, I look at the opportunity to network, and I look at the organization structure of those networks, and I go, man, I wish I could be a bigger part of this. I wish that I could get this training so that I could be organized like these people are organized. But then I go back to the material analysis of what it is that they do, and really all they do is a bunch of virtue signaling that is intended to get a bunch of people into a big tent platform and agree to all voting on one thing, or all jumping into lockstep so that they can coordinate their lockstep coordination to whatever electoral ends, right? And I don't want to do that. I don't want my organizing to look like that. I want to organize like we've been talking about, creating spaces where no one's in charge, or the people in charge are creatively asking for feedback and criticism and for dissent and for right, so that they can be stronger and so that they can have a better thesis of what it is that they're trying to accomplish, right? That so that they can have a more truer truth, so that they can work out the problems. Well, thanks. Yes, humanity is a strength, not a weakness. And that was the thing, is something that I've talked about previously on stream is that sometimes I have this imposter syndrome where when other people are talking about theory, or when other people are talking about philosophy, a lot of times I'm in awe of other people, right? When they start to get on the tangent and they start to sound really smart, it makes me feel a little bit insecure sometimes, where I'm like, man, that's really insightful and brilliant, and I've never even heard of that kind of viewpoint. That would have never occurred to me. And instead of me going, thank you for the opportunity, right, I get in my own head about it, and I have a tendency to go to feel the imposter syndrome. And that's just something that I need to figure out how to get over, because I don't need to have read everything, and that's oftentimes how I feel when other people are bringing up philosophies or ideas that I'm unsure about, or I don't know a lot about. It's an opportunity for me to grow and learn, rather than an opportunity for me to embarrass myself, right? And that's a silly mindset for me to have, and it's not something that I rationally have, but it is something that clearly is a feeling that I haven't been able to completely get rid of, or an emotional state. Not sure, but yeah, it's something that I'm working on. Oh yeah, absolutely. State-based means you always be counter-revolutionary. Yes, always. And that's the realization, Jane. Absolutely, that's exactly part of it. There should not be a structural power in any way, and that's something that I have a hard time wrapping my head around. And again, part of it has to do with the fact that I'm looking at these organizations, and I'm conditioned to see them as productive, right? And they do accomplish ends. They get people elected, but they're not productive in the right way, right? Got like 5 articles. Kiyomara. I've been saying your name wrong. No, Kaimatara. How should I say your name? I've been saying it Kiyomatara, but now I see that that's not correct at all. Kaimatara. Yeah, is it Kaimatara? I've got like 5 articles in progress, and keep having more that keep coming up, not allowing me to finish it. There's one with titles. The titles, Disability is Counter-Revolution. From the river to the seabed, why Maori rights are indebted to Palestinians. Okay. The right cannot be political. Beneficiary bashing, eugenics, and the invisibility of disability. Okay, that's going to be good. Yep, but with a rolled R on the end. Kaimatara. I'm not good at rolling the R, so I'll have to practice. Thank you for, and I appreciate your patience while I try to practice rolling my R. Kaimatara. So I can say it a little bit less whitely. I don't get enough practice rolling my R. I didn't say anything about. I just said that somebody came into chat and said that he died. I haven't bothered to look it up. If anybody wants to check, Matt, welcome back. If anybody wants to check and see if Charlie Kirk actually has been mortally wounded, that's fine. T. Kaori explaining the Amori concept of nothingness. This is something actually when I'm glad that you brought that up because when I was looking at this other article, the thing that you recommended, is this the right one? No, not the right one. Try that again. This article. Which when I started reading that, never mind, that's not the wrong place. Forgetting where T. Kaori came up. Oh, okay. 40 minutes ago, it said he wasn't looking good. Okay. And it was about, well, I guess it's been more than an hour that that person came in and said that, so. Yeah, I don't know. Critical condition. That's why non-LM Marxists, anarchists, left communists, etc. get along even when they disagree, but LMs don't usually get along with any of them because parties and states often can't control dissident, even those that claim to follow dialectics. Yeah, and that's MLs don't usually get along with any of them. MLs, yeah. I would like to understand better why that is. It's a phenomenon that I have absolutely noticed, and I think that you're absolutely right, Kimatara, that's what you're on about there. But it seems like there's got to be some kind of system. I'm a systemic philosopher. It's been a while since I've talked about this. That's my area of emphasis. My uber nerd philosophy thing is systemic philosophy. And so I would be curious as to understand the systemic differences, the value differences which cause that rift, which is part of that that dynamics. Because that's the sentiment that I've seen, even like because I've seen anarchists disagree with other anarchists, communists disagree with other communists, and anarchists and communists disagree, and it's almost never over serious stuff. Now that there have been a few times that I've seen really heated disagreements happen, and those are usually about racism or sexism, right? Your anarchism doesn't have sufficient, or your communism doesn't have sufficient. If your communism isn't this kind of communism, then it's not going to then necessarily it's going to be racist and or sexist. And those kind of critiques, I think, are understandable from the people who are making them, but are often also, I think, I don't know, pushing too hard. Rather than trying to reconcile differences. That's I think a lot of times the mistake that people make when we have intractable differences is that people believe that what they are trying to do is to get that other person to have my viewpoint. Right? And that's not always helpful or productive. Sometimes sometimes it's better to have somebody around who is going to constantly elbow you and go, hey, don't forget that sometimes your dialectics is insufficiently anti-racist. But that's actually just good, rather than that being a point of conflict that should cause people to rift apart. It should be the kind of thing where somebody goes, well, thank you for holding me accountable, right? Thank you for helping me be more aware of these realities, of being real about the dialectics. But that requires a kind of humility too, that people are generally not accustomed to maintaining in their advocacy. When we are fighting for justice and rights and for basic needs, we get very passionate and we want to change the world. We want to change people's mind. But we don't do that. We don't do that by making enemies of everybody, right? Or enemies of ourselves with the infighting. This goes back to what Kiyomitara was talking about. Good, it's still here. In the first place, right? The synthesis of Marxist thesis and an anarchist antithesis has the potential to be a richer and more robust form of communism. When this doesn't happen, when the dialectic within the movement gets purged, it leads to stagnation, which leaves a stagnated body going up against a far stronger, more dominant antithesis, liberalism, right? When we as dialecticians are turning on each other, right? What we're doing is we're causing alienation within the tent, to use a bad analogy, because I don't think that leftists are in a big tent. But you are left with these rifts which don't resolve, right? That don't become anything new. Rather, what this does is it becomes a placeholder which keeps our attention turned on here, so that the actual dialectic synthesis back here between our leftist ideas and capitalism and colonialism, right? This is going on here, but our attention is turned into this stagnation, into the rifts. Rather than focusing on anything productive, we're focusing on the divides within us that prevent us from being effectively antithetical to those prevailing ideas. Well, that's what we've done. That is the world we're creating with the best intentions, right? That is what we've done, yeah. But this goes back to something that is necessary, right? We do need to purity test, but it's not a failed endeavor. Purity testing is necessary and helpful for us building real cohesive coalitions. We need for people to feel like they will be okay being trans and in a big coalition, right? That's the transes right now are really the most getting thrown under the bus. Well, that's the newest big shift, right? The newest big shift is the trans is getting thrown under the bus. Now, that's not to discount the fact that non-white people have been under the bus the whole time, right? That their position under the bus hasn't changed, right? It's just that now that there's a widening of pushing into this new kind of social pushback, right? None of the other things have gotten any better. It's just that now the marginalized groups, the groups of the marginalized, have just become expanded, really, with greater focus and intensity, maybe is a good way to put it. I would not call it purity testing, but rather principle tests. Okay, I like that. As an example, when I was in middle school, it was just starting to be okay to be out as queer. 20 years later, my youngest sibling is in middle school being bullied for not being queer, where the elders saying, hey, y'all remember where you came from? Like we lost the fucking plot. Yes. Right. Well, I mean, it should fire you up, but that's exactly right. And what we've seen is a shift in group dynamics. Right, that the relationship is actually the same. It's just who is in those relationships that's different, and that's the problem that we run into with a lot of socialist democratic initiatives, is rather than us solving any of the power dynamics which interfere with our ability to live in a free society, socialist democratic construction reorganizes the forms of oppression. Right? That's all Soc Dem is taking the same liberal, colonial, imperialist structure and then making it a little bit less horrible for some of the people. Right? That's all that's being accomplished. None of the dynamics of the power structure have really changed, other than who's in the power and who's being oppressed. And that's not surprising that's where we are. With our quote unquote progress, and it's the best of intentions for sure, but this is all about the about a month ago now, maybe a little bit more than a month ago. One of the streams I did was focused specifically on teleology and how teleology, it's not just the end goal. Right? That's what teleology is about. It's about the end or the purpose, what it is that we're driven towards, or that which compels us. It's the end. That's what teleology is. It's a study of TV. No, it's a study of ends. But it's more than that. What teleology is a reciprocal process that we work toward, and as we work toward that, it changes us, right? And that's material dialectics. What our end goals are determine how we get there, but it also determines who we become as we move through time towards that end. We literally take on an identity which is coherent with that end that we suppose. And when our ends are so directed, that's the kind of result that we get, is if what we're trying to do is ameliorate the way that capitalism and imperialism abuse people, we're still creating a system of abuse. we're recreating with interpolation our activity in our vita activa. Those things recreate that abuse, even if it's less. Right? That structure still remains, because of the way that because of our telos, right, and the way that we are shaped by our directedness. But I have really not talked about the article very much. So let me talk. Let me talk a little bit about this article, huh? Because it's really good. I thought I was going to use. I've got one of the readers that reads the text aloud, but it does not do a good job with Maori pronunciations at all. It probably wouldn't be so bad if I could slow it down a little bit, but there's not any way that you can tweak the settings or change the settings or adjust it. It's just a free browser extension that I've downloaded, so it's not the best. It's great for being free, but there's only so much that I can do with it. It's not very good for this. So I'm going to take a short break so that I can rest my mouth. And then I'm going to read through this article. Right, why hasn't Windows built that in yet? Well, that has to do with, where was it? Sorry, I'm not trying to butcher it, I promise. I'm trying to practice my R's. Kiamatara.
Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it?
Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar.
Get it?
Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar.
Get it?
Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar.
Get it?
Look at all these slave masters.
Found one of the other sound alerts. That's yeah, capitalism every time. But it's also the way that ableism is invisibilized, because if disabilities was in making accommodations for the disabilities that people had was a larger part of how Microsoft organized itself and thought about how to serve its users, we would have text to voice already integrated into all of our systems. Microsoft would have done that decades ago. Well, not decades. They haven't been around for that long, but they would have done it by now. They would have done it probably in the 90s, I would imagine. But oh, right, yeah, so I'm going to put on some music. A little bit more music than that. It was a good sound alert, good. But this is a new song that just came out from Castle Rat. I have heard it. It's really good. Y'all know that I'm a big fan of Castle Rat. So we're going to put this on. Just because I need to rest my mouth a little bit. There we go. That's the right one. And then I'm going to read that article. Yep. They'd have one workflow for all Office programs if accessibility was important at all. Excellent point, Matt. Yeah, if accessibility was a point, then it would be different for sure. Microsoft would be different.
Upon a trail forgotten, a beast before me passing, I glimpsed you in a life before.
Yeah, I was worried I wouldn't actually have enough time to accomplish everything I was hoping to. Hey, welcome in. I got a raid from DJ Che. Welcome in, DJ Che. Thank you so much for the raid. If you all are not already following DJ Che, please go follow them. They are fantastic. They are a comrade. And they're just really cool. Work. Did the sound a lot? Not. It's got a 10-minute cooldown. I don't know if it's been 10 minutes since the last time. Yeah, let me check. Actually, I might be able to check the timer and see where it's at. It doesn't tell me. That would be kind of cool though if it would tell me how much time was left on the counter. I can reset the counter. There you go. I cleared the cooldown, so it should work again now. Good. Good. Oh, and I do need to change the... oh, no, I'd already changed it. Okay, cool. Good. Well, I rested my mouth enough that I could read this article. And that's all that really matters anyway. That I could read philosophy. So let's jump into this. It's not a very long article, so this isn't going to take very long, but it is actually extremely informative, I think, and there's a lot of ideas in here that we'll probably want to unpack a little bit more fully, I think, when we get into it. So, again, yeah, give Street Cat Love some love too. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that shout out. The text was introduced to the editors during... oh, this is a story about us. Where it begins. And so I'm... I guess I should read. Text was introduced to the editors during the workshop. Narrativizing citation, saltwater sensibilities, held in October 2022 by Leuli Estragi. The editors would like to thank Caitlin Plasto and Marie Louise Richards, editors of Citations, for convening the event. Leuli Estragi for their generous and inspiring workshop, and Emmy Raquete for permissions to republish in the Parse platform. So now we're going to read it. The story is about us, about all of us, although it will come to trouble the notion of an us, which is in quotes. Like all essentially Maori stories, this one has a wakapapa, without which it does not make sense. And to clarify, the wakapapa in Heo'eo Maori, or in the Maori world, is to prevent your tapuna, or your ancestors, from withering away. If you know your wakapapa, then you are the third law of dialectics in practice. So those of you who are familiar with dialectics, that makes sense to you. Those of you who are not familiar with dialectics, that doesn't make sense to you yet. But it will hopefully make sense to you by the end of this article, which is one of the reasons why I like this so much, this article so much, is because, again, it's really quite a short article, but there's a lot of dense philosophical ideas that are covered, and by the end of the article, you'll understand those ideas as though you had read dialectics, right? Some kind of dialectic philosophy, because this is literally dialectic philosophy. Laws, ACAB, right? Different kind of laws. Right. To tell this story about us, of how we relate to one another, it is first necessary to tell a story about Papa Tuanuku. With our mother fixed in our minds, we can begin to talk about ourselves. And this idea of Papa Tuanuku isn't just Earth either. It's a little bit more complicated, I think, than that. And right, it's about the relationship. It's not just the land, but it's about the let me or switch our views so that you can get more of it. It's not just the land, but the land's relationship to the rivers and streams and oceans and skies and sun and moon and everything in a cosmology or mythology, right? This term, Papa Tuanuku, seems to encompass the whole biosphere, not just the earth, not just the land itself, but everything that is a part of the landedness. An expanded concept, not just the earth. Or it seems to me. Now, I'm not an expert, so let me just throw that grain of salt as it seems to me, as a novice who is introducing themselves to these concepts. Right, put myself in proper context here. With our mother fixed in our minds, we can begin to talk about ourselves. In the beginning is ke teori, or nothing, right? This is the idea that there we go. Kimatara mentioned earlier. Te keori is nothing. In the beginning, there is te keori. There is the potential that things will come to be, but at this point, they are not. There are countless permutations of te keori. The fertile void iterates and reiterates, and eventually Tepo, the night, emerges. Within Tepo are the ancestors who simultaneously constitute and precede materiality. So this is, for those, again, who are familiar with dialectics, this will be something that resonates with you. This is what comes before, which interpolates us. Right, this is part of the process of interpolation, or understanding the interpolation. That's the material reality of the plurality, which precedes your whoever you are. It precedes your existence. And this is something which is inspirited too, right? So in a lot of the metaphysics, when we were talking about these kinds of dialectic ideas, they're treated as inert, right? In the Western tradition, I mean, Marx and Hegel are going to treat these things as maybe as powers which are the product of people or people's activity or attitudes or ideologies, but they themselves are not inspirited. Though Hegel would probably, no, let me recant that. Hegel is going to give this a spirit of itself. But a lot of philosophers who follow in Hegel's footsteps and come after Hegel would not, is I think fair to say. There is no universally agreed order of events here, but we can satisfy ourselves by accepting that among these figures are Tangora, Ranginui, and Papatuanuku, and that in some configuration the sea, the sky, and foremost the earth produce everything that exists. We see in the cosmogonic cycle, I don't remember that word, cosmogonic cycle, the beginning of a political ecology rooted in relationality, in Wakapapa. Cosmogonic? So it's just another word for cosmology. Okay. Okay. Sitting on the beach as a young girl, I picked a squirming insect from my scalp and watched in horror as my own blood leaked out of its crushed body. Ani Makeri explicates human relationships with Papatuanuku. Papatuanuku is Atua, Tupuna, and the land simultaneously. There is no sensible way of separating out the ways in which humans experience our relationships with her. So maybe, yeah, Papatuanuku, that's the larger. Okay, anyways. We can be understood to relate to one another within Papatuanuku in similar terms. It is within this unitary and holistic system of relationality that we can address the Raruraru raised in Jane Bennett's political ecologies. Which actions constitute political actions? What roles do humans and the inhuman play in these processes? So what we're talking about, well, I'll let they explain it better than I can. Let me just continue to read. Political ecologies queries the level at which political agency exists and the kinds of actants that are capable of authentic political acts. Bennett interrogates the potentialities of non-humans to whom political agency can be assigned, questions the anthropocentric assumptions behind both John Dewey's and Jacques Rancière's definitions of politics. Bennett argues that agency and political action are not functions of a body that must necessarily be a human one to enact them, but that political action occurs regardless of human input, that inhuman forces interact with one another, inhuman forces interacting with humans, and humans interacting with humans are not fundamentally dissimilar scenarios. So one of the things that I've talked about is that the world isn't a bunch of inert stuff. The world, to us, meaningfully, is what the stuff in the world is the product of our relationship to that world. One of the things that I have neglected in this explanation, in this insistence of explaining the metaphysics of the world this way, is that there are relationships which exist, which precede humanity and persist despite humanity's observance, right? Whether or not we are there. Bonobos will behave in the way that bonobos will behave. Amoebas react to light and moisture in a particular way, whether or not we are observing them. right? There are phenomenon of the universe which we have found do seem to change depending on our attention on it. But the politics of the given material world persist despite humans, right? With or without humans, regardless of humans' interaction. Well, that's not quite right either. Independent. They exist independent, but also not, because we're all necessarily correlated. There are no separations. There are no degrees. There are no categories. There are no ends or boundaries between what we are and the politics of the given material world. There is no material separation, actually. There's separations of meaning that we give to the material world that separates us and that and these, right? But those discontinuities are the social constructs that we construct of the world. The discontinuities of the oneness of existence. This article in Jane Bennett's Vibrant Matter is what inspired the article I wrote called The Earth is a Who. The Earth is a Who. I like that. Good. Thank you for sharing. I'll check that one out later after we're done going over this one. Thank you for giving me more stuff to homework. Are you sure? Have you observed it happening when you're not observing? Right. Well, that's one of the things that I kind of question about the quantum mechanics papers that I've seen on the decay of radiation. Right. That's one of the things that changes upon observation. Right. Some kind of decay. I can't remember if it's radioactive decay, but there's some kind of decay that when a human is looking at the thing doing the decaying, it decays at a certain rate. But when nobody's looking at it, it decays at a different rate. Right. So there's I have questions about that, but my understanding of quantum mechanics is I have a non-zero understanding of quantum mechanics, but it's really very, very itty bitty, a non-zero amount, but you crack me up, Matt. Good. Right. Political action, regardless of human input, human forces interacting with one another, inhuman forces interacting with humans, and humans interacting with humans are not fundamentally dissimilar scenarios. Right. We have this anthropocentric viewpoint where we believe that social structures and politics and morality are things that we invented and only we understand. And that I believe is a complete mistake to assume. In one of my classes yesterday, in my class yesterday, I had somebody that was pushing back against behavioralism and was talking about that some some animals in the animal kingdom, bonobos actually, I think is, we were just talking about those, that members of societies will in times of need, in times of danger, will sacrifice themselves, will deliberately, seemingly, knowingly go out of their way to put themselves in harm's way, such that they will almost guaranteedly die from putting themselves in harm's way in order to save everybody else in the group. Right? This is a phenomenon that we have observed, and yet humans still seem to want to argue that morality and ethics are human affairs, and that none of those ideas translate over to the non-human animal kingdom. Just seems kind of silly, right? It's 9:10. Make sure to leave milk and cookies out for George W. Bush. Yup. That's a good one too. You could put these at the bottom of your reading list: Sex at Dawn and Sex at Dusk. Okay. Well, while we're adding to my reading list, good. Going back to the wrong thing. Apparently, I really want to watch that video. I mean, I do really want to watch that video, but we probably won't have time for that today on stream. We'll come back to that later. I'll probably finish watching it first, actually, because it seems pretty deep, pretty dense. I'll probably want to watch it first and then explain it. But anyways, carrying on. Thank you, Anissa, for the recommendations. I'll definitely look those up. In Nga Hikanga Maori, we also find the idea that political... Look this up, because I actually don't know. That hasn't been explained yet. Okay, so this is like, okay. In Nga Hikanga Maori, we also find the idea that political agency is not the sole realm of individuals, rather that a hegemonistic chain of being which hierarchizes humanity as an epistemological category above worms, lice, and land. Hikanga Maori's organizational principle is Wakapapa, which affirms the shared heritage through Papa Tuanuku, and therefore the fundamental sameness of all things. As Malkari says, everything in the natural world, ourselves included, shares a common ancestry. The term Tangata Whenua then can be translated in two ways. People of the land implies that we are people foremost and that we relate to the land. This translation relies on the primacy of a human subject, a notion that is rapidly becoming analytically irrelevant. From a political ecological perspective, rooted in Papa Tuanuku, we could translate Tonga Wengua instead as land people. People not as its own epistemological category, but as a function of the land. When the Wengua, of the Wenua, pronouncing that, Wenua. We are not beings who are of the land, but the land itself in the act of being. We are a function of the ecology. We are ecology foremost. I really, really love this phrasing and this way of thinking about humanity and our humanness. Not as beings who are on the land, who are of the land, but the land itself in the act of being, right? We are a kind of natural expression of the ecosphere in which we find ourselves. Right? In the way that there are rock formations in caves, and in the same way that there well, I'm trying to think of other analogies, but I'm only going to muddy the waters. Let me just continue reading the this. And when I sat on the beach and crushed the louse, my disgust came from what psychoanalyst and philosopher Julia Kristeva terms abjection, the horror of neither, the muddying of the border between subject and object. Was I an individual unit, whole within myself, or was I forestalling, as Bennett quotes from Dewey's Art as Experience, acknowledgement of this dependence of the self for wholeness upon its surroundings? In my experiences up until that point, the sensation had been that I was an individual subject with bounded and inviolable borders. What the parasite demonstrates is that this frame of reference is insufficient, where what we perceive as ourself is only a part of the ecology. We think of ourselves as individuals operating within a static and passive environment. The parasite allows the understanding that we ourselves are the environment in which other individuals may also operate. There is a sense of facilization here, that we are Papa Tuanuku writ small. We are in her, parasites are in us. And as I found when I crushed one, we are inside them. Right? So again, the connectedness is without borders or boundaries. Of our relationship to and with each other, not just other humans, but other non-human entities in our ecological sphere, is immediate. And this is something that I have been stressing over and over and over and over again about our perception of the world and the way that we understand our identity and ourselves, right? We often see ourselves as a combination of ideological human constructs, nationalist or economic or gendered or whatever kinds of categories of being that we find ourselves in. These are actually just imaginary things. They're social constructs that we have invented to understand the world, make sense of the world. None of that is real. What is real, the only thing that is really real, is the relationships, or are the relationships that we have to and with other beings which are capable of having relationships. That's what the world is a series of relationships. And that's why I keep stressing that we have nearly immediate access to the moral world only. Right? We don't have near immediate access to the physical world. We have mediated access, and we have access mediated through our being, our place in time, our relative biases, and our experiences, which are unique to us. which interfere with our ability to understand the material world in a way that isn't egocentric. If we want to understand the world in a way that's not egocentric, the moral realm is the realm external to us, which we have nearly immediate access because we understand the world external to us, and we understand all of these social constructs that we have invented to understand the world. We understand all of those by virtue of our moral relationships to and with each other, right? This is the primacy. It's called ontological priority in philosophy. Ontologically prior to you being an American, or you being a tenant who has to pay rent, or you being a medical patient, or you being any other kind of being. You are a moral being. Prior to any other kind of social construct, your moral being with others is not a social construct. All of the other ways that we understand our relationship to the world are purely social constructs that we use to understand time and math and colors and other things about the world. And those things we use as the building blocks for making up our material reality. Those things are all informed first and foremost by our moral community, by these bonds that we have by sharing time and space with other beings capable of relationships around us. The parasite collapses these constructed borders and opens our impressions of our bodies, deep new understandings of interconnectivity, moving us into a post-human conception of the self as ecology. And connecting to that. Have I been disconnected? Have I effed out anybody?
Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it?
Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar.
Get it?
Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Look
Checking to
at
make
all
sure
these
if
slave
you're still
masters
connected.
posing on your dollar.
Looks like maybe you are.
all these slave masters.
Something keeps popping up in one of my windows that keeps saying you're connected to the chat, and that you're connected to the chat, and you're connected to the chat, and I'm like, well, when did I become disconnected to the chat? Thank you, I appreciate that. Good. From a liberal individualist perspective, we are all distinct units. But from Papa Tuanuku's perspective, or from the perspective of one embracing... Oh, wait, did I skip some? Yes. The parasite collapses these constructed borders and opens our impressions of our bodies to deep new understandings of interconnectivity, moving us into a post-human conception of the self as ecology. Does anybody need me to stop and unpack post-humanism? Well, I mean, it's really not that hard. Post-humanism is a concept that is used to express an existence of humans in the future that is sufficiently distinct that if we today were to look at that, we would not recognize that as the same thing as us. That's what post-human is about is this kind of difference. One way that it's kind of that you might think about it is that first contact. Anybody that's seen Star Trek First Contact, there's the not the pilot who builds the ship, but the woman who's supposed to be co-piloting the ship with the pilot who builds the ship. I can't believe I can't remember anybody's name for anyways. But they take her up into the Starship Enterprise, beam her up from Earth, and she's passed out when they beam her up. So when she comes to, she awakens on a starship where the doors open automatically and they can just get tea that's hot out of the replicator and all of these fantastic things that are beyond her comprehensions. And so she perceives these other humans who are just humans from the future. She perceives them as gods, right? And so the post-human analogy is not necessarily one that is so divorced that we would recognize the post-humans as gods in comparison to us, but as so distinctly different, right? And that there's such a disconnect that one who is in the past looking forward to the future would not see themselves as the same being. The one in the future probably might if they have history, right? If they understand their history and where they came from, the one in the future would understand, but the one in the past would not be able to comprehend themselves as being the same kind of thing. No. Like how American Christian Zionists see Israelis. No, I understand what you're saying there, but it's, well, okay. Now that I think about it, yes, that's the antithesis, right? That's subhumanation, or an inhuman viewpoint such that, yes. So yeah, you're not wrong. It's the same thing, but the opposite. Right. Good. Good, and that's very astute to make that connection too. I was just remembering where I'm. The description of post-humanism that I'm giving is from Ginecod. You can read, I'll just type it in chat. In case anybody wants to do a deeper dive on post-humanism, this was my introduction into post-humanism. There's a lot more, right? And there are different takes on post-humanism, but the definition that I've given you and that I'm operating off of, I got from Dominique Ginecod, I think is how it's pronounced. Awesome. Enjoy your lurk, Nisa. It's great to see you. Thank you for stopping by and putting some excellent stuff in chat and for giving me reading to look for. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, because the Jews are part of their scripture interpretation to bring the rapture. Yeah, and right, they view them instrumentally. not as humans in themselves, right? I think as part of it. Yeah, right. It is really quite twisted, isn't it? Parasite poses. I did not finish. Under liberal individualism, a dialectic is formed between self and environment. The parasite poses a synthesis to this model, that the self is an environment, and conversely, that the environment is a self, right? And this is in the last stream. Hidematara had asked me a question about the personhood of the land itself in a LandBack context, and that's the kind of idea that I think that we see here. I lost my. A dialectic is formed between self and environment. The parasite poses a synthesis to this model, that the self is an environment, and conversely, that the environment is a self. I am not only in me, but everything in which I share wakapapa. From a liberal individualist perspective, we are all distinct units. But from Papa Tuanuku's perspective, or from the perspective of one embracing Papa Tuanuku Tonga, we have always been one system. So there's going to be a kind of Taoist understanding, I think, of one. I'm not sure how well that analogy tracks. There's a few ideas in terms that are used here that make me think about Eastern philosophies about Dharma, Atman, moksha, right? These different kind of concepts. And when I was first reading it, I was tempted to view those things in kind of the same way. But I'm trying not to. I'm trying to, rather than trying to understand this through the lens of some other kind of ideology or philosophy, I'm trying to understand it more directly, so that I don't cloud what it is with my misunderstanding or with my my analogy, my trying to make analogies of it. Always been one system. Parts of the system express themselves materially as what we identify as humans. Other parts of these functions of Papa Tuanuku's ecology do not express themselves this way, but as rivers, lakes, hills, plants, insects, buildings, birds, animals, bacteria, viruses, wind, sunlight, heat, warmth, presence, absence, and with Papa Tuanuku Tonga, none of these systemic ecological functions is epistemologically or ontologically hierarchized above any other, right? Everything is, there isn't a hierarchy to their ontological priority or to their structure. There's so much to unpack here. There's so much to unpack here. Maybe I'll come back. Because there's so much to unpack in this one sentence. We'll come back. There cannot be any difference. The ecology is a horizontal system, and every function of the ecology is equivalent to every other function of the ecology. To decide as Rancière did, that politics presupposes a human subject, is a discussion based not on the material capacity of an agent to act within a public to address its problem, but on the metaphysical idea of authentic action. Politics. Politics presupposes a human subject is decision based not on material capacity agent to act within a public to address its problems, but on the metaphysical idea of authentic action. Right. Okay. Political action does not require human actants have occurred, right? But under our present understanding of politics, an action does need to be produced by human actants to be categorized as political, right? Which is almost paradoxical, actually, in the context now that we have a broader understanding of being, right? It seems paradoxical that we would consider political acts to require human action. This issue is not one of causation, i.e., can an actant produce Rancière's argumentative utterances, but of categorization, i.e., which actants' utterances will we consider argumentative. Not that inhuman politics are fundamentally different from human politics, but we have not been regarding them as such. But we have not been regarding them as such. Such a distinction is based on anthropocentric transcendentalism and is ultimately meaningless. Transcendence requires dictation from above, from some authority that screams it is separate from this system. Right. This is so for those of you who are familiar with the work of Immanuel Kant, this is the constituting consciousness problem, right? And that's the issue with transcendentalism. It's not always necessarily above, right, in the Kantian sense, but it is outside of. And that's what this is arguing, that if there were anything that could be outside of the system, it would actually be ultimately meaningless, right? And this is the same way that when we talk about ethics, one of the things that I've mentioned before with rationalist ethical frameworks is they look at an ethical situation in the real world, and then it takes parts of that problem, parts of that particular moral situation, and abstracts about the content of those things. And we take from the material these abstract ideas, construct frameworks for arranging and understanding those ideas. And then when we go to put them back in, sometimes they don't really neatly fit. Right? And that's with a lot of rationalist frameworks, deontology or utilitarianism, that they're going to run into this problem where we can abstract out these absolute principles about how we suppose morality ought to be. But then when we go to reassert these principles back in, they give us results like, under no circumstances is it morally permissible for you to lie, even if there's a Nazi at the door who's trying to murder somebody that's in your closet, right? That's the Kantian problem of Kantian deontology, is that it commits us to these principles that cannot be violated. And in the inviolability of those principles themselves, we find immorality. we find something that is antithetical to the moral ideals that we think are valuable and worth supporting. And it's because of this disconnect. When you transcend the particulars of your situation, the meaning that you get transcendent doesn't go back in. The meaning out here is not going to be the same meaning in here. If you had gotten the meaning in here, that would be a different meaning. That would have required the transcendence. So when we do this process of imagining the objective observer, right, that isn't God, because Immanuel Kant doesn't want to say that God exists and is the reason for all of these things existing as they are, but somebody who wanted to be critical of Immanuel Kant's theories, that would be the viewpoint, right? You've called this thing the constituting consciousness that is transcendent, such that it gives us all of these kinds of meaningful ideas. But how is that not just calling that thing God, right? How is that different, actually, Immanuel Kant? And it is different. To be fair, that's it's not a bad pushback, but it's also kind of a bad faith pushback against Immanuel Kant's ideas. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. let me go back to reading. Transcendence requires dictation from above, from some authority that dreamed it is separate from this system. Our politics looks below to the warm earth and the imminent tendencies that guide its trillions of inhabitants. Papatuanuku Tonga allows for a model of the political ecology in which the politics of the inhuman are once again reconcilable. Right? It gives us a way to make intelligible those ideals that philosophy for a long time has considered unintelligible. Consider, for example, Takanga of death. When Tupapaku, and Tapuna is ancestor. Okay. I know what it is. We've talked about it. Oh, I guess when we have it. Okay, so this is the first time I've. Papaku. Papaku. That's probably Papaku. Rest in a body of water, for instance, when drowning, the lake, river, or stream becomes Papu, and humans in interaction with that body become subject to certain restrictions on their behavior. Here we see that relations between humans and objects have become political ones. The community, the individual who has transgressed, and the material environment itself all exist within a cohesive political ecology. Inhuman actants that would otherwise be considered passive and environmental become engaged participants in a political intercourse. A human who transgresses the tapu of a body of water might fall ill as a form of reciprocation, and amends would need to be made. Likewise, the practice of Rahui expressly demonstrates the post-human principles of Takanga Maori. At human expense, certain species are not subject to hunting or fishing to allow their regeneration. Okay. Okay. In these examples of Papatuanaku Tonga, Papatuanuku Tonga, the hierarchy between human subjects and environmental objects is completely deconstructed. Relationships between actants take place within a relational ecology without hierarchies, hegemonies. Humans are not more or less than any other component of the ecostructure. And this is something that our Western brains also often have a hard time wrapping our head around. Oh, there's a lot of people who talk about Immanuel Kant, but what about an automatic Kant? Oh my God. There's so much that's funny about that. It's funny that you thank you for saying that. When I read it, I was thinking to myself, it sounded like taboo. It sounded like taboo. Yeah, the English word taboo comes from the Polynesian word tapu. Gotcha. Yeah, it sounded like it was it seemed like it was a very similar kind of thing. Good, thank you. It's so funny because Immanuel Kant focuses so much on autonomy and the autonomy as contrasted with being an automaton, right? And then the right, so like Immanuel Kant is trying to tell you that you shouldn't be an automaton, like automatic Kant is trying to tell you. Sorry, it's probably not that funny. I just thought I thought it was funny. Good. Ironically, a political ecological perspective of power relations between human and human bodies renders parasitism as a phenomenon incomprehensible, right? Why should a louse surviving on the surface of my skin be categorized as parasite, and I should not? Like, this is such a good quote. This is such a quotable phrase, right? This sentence right here. Why should a louse surviving on the surface of my skin be categorized as a parasite, and I should not? When we are both crawling on the skin of a larger ecology, surviving there as best we can. As Dewey says, the epidermis is in only the most superficial way an indication of where an organism ends and its environment begins. With the boundary between even organism and environment deconstructed in favor of a Wakapapa system of relationality and political ecology. How can we talk about insides or outsides, margins, everything existing in deep fundamental relation to everything else? And while functions of the ecology may interact with one another, no relationship of sub or superordination can be established between them. The louse is not inside me, and I am not inside Papatuanuku. All of us exist in dynamic equity with each other. Through Papatuanuku, I can sit on the beach and know that myself is not in the louse's guts inside the louse, nor in the louse inside my hand, nor is my body inside Tapanuanuku, nor in Papatuanuku herself, but distributed at every possible point through that system. That's why I can't stop calling landlords parasites, right? That actually does track, right? In a way that makes real sense. No, I think that tracks really quite well. And there's a lot to be said here. So one of the things that I think is really quite, actually, let's say it this way. As I was reading this the first time, the first thing that jumped out to me most saliently was this idea of phenomenal arc. So we're going to talk about phenomenology for a minute. In the philosophy of phenomenology, there's the same negation of the idea that your body ends at your fingertips, at where your skin ends. Well, I should back up a little bit. The first thing that phenomenology does is it dismantles the body-mind dualism, right? Rather than trying to resolve an immaterial world with the material world, we don't have to, right? We understand that we have ideas, rational concepts that are divorced from the world, but that we can still interact with the world in meaningful ways, in that those two things are both real. We don't need to have a causal explanation for how our thoughts translate into action. We know that they do, right? We don't have to figure out how or why it is that we have thoughts and that those thoughts turn into action. We understand that there is a relationship there. But after we dispel the body-mind dualism myth, that's the next thing that phenomenology goes on to dismantle, is that your self ends at your skin, because what you are as a self depends on the conception that your parents had of you at some point in time, such that you cared about what your parents thought about you, such that their viewpoint of you determined the kind of being you were becoming at that point in time. And now that is a thing which has happened in your history, it is a thing which is indivorceable from yourself, right? Which is an existent part of your very real self, which isn't contained within you, right? That is something which exists out of time and out of your hands, out of your sphere of existence. The expectation that your parents had of you at some point in time when you cared about those expectations. If you still care about those expectations, that's an ongoing relationship. And if you don't, then it's that it is an ongoing relationship, but the dynamics of that relationship has changed. So what is external to you is constantly determining what you are all the time anyway. Right? That you, well, let's not go that way. But there are other things that apply to this. Things that are within your phenomenal sphere. are what I'm talking about. Your phenomenal sphere is your capabilities and capacities are defined by your potentialities, but it's also your identity. It's all the things. All the things are all determined by all the things around you at all the times. Trying to get to in our phenomenal. What is it that I'm trying to express? This idea. Oh, hey, welcome in, Fantastic Kitty. You caught me while I was deep in thought, trying to figure out how to articulate something very deep. Going out for a walk now. Will you be posting this VOD? Absolutely. The VOD will be up. Thank you for stopping in, Fantastic Kitty. It's so good to see you. I hope you have a fantastic walk. Oh, good. Worth pondering. In my own article, I argue that capitalists and corporations are actually not truly material things. Yes, they're not. Which is why their contradictions constantly creates its decay and is an abstraction based on extraction. Yes. Good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Fantastic Kitty. Really material thing. They're not. They're relationships. Corporations and capitalists themselves. Well, capitalists are yes and no. So capitalists themselves might be they take on actual materiality in their relationships with capital and exploitation. But then so too wouldn't the corporations. Why would I think that there's a difference there? Because the corporations still do the thing. It's an identity. But it's a dissolvable identity. It's an identity which doesn't have persistence. I'm an identity which has persistence. You can say, you don't exist to me. And even if you have widespread consensus, if hundreds and thousands of people agreed with you that I don't exist, I would still persist. How I would persist would fundamentally be radically different. Extremely, I shouldn't use radically that way. Would be unbelievably different. Would be extremely different. Because of that relationship, but I wouldn't see this. The corporation, if hundreds and thousands of people all unanimously believe that corporation doesn't exist, then it doesn't, right? Once there's no longer anybody to believe that such a corporation exists, it doesn't. But my incorporation is not contingent on that kind of thing. So the people themselves have a different kind of permanence. Well, okay, they are a function, right? The capitalists aren't real themselves. The bodies, the humans are real, and those humans become functions of capital, right? Right, and corporations simply just don't exist, really. They're not true material things in any kind of real way. Capitalists are, at some point, real things, but not themselves the real things. They're roles or relationships that are fulfilled by somebody who will be there at some point in time. But that who that is and what that is relative. It's not a static definition thing. Right. I think maybe that would make sense. And I was hoping that unpacking all of that would help me understand what it is that I'm trying to convey with this idea of the stuff around us in our phenomenological sphere. I should just go to the next thing to talk about with regards to the phenomenological sphere. So you have the ability to alter things in the world around you. So this is where we're going to get into the identity and free will side. Good. I was a little bit worried I wasn't going to be able to talk about free will at all today. But we have the opportunity to do things and change things in the world. This is where we get free will. Is that there exists things around me, and those things I have the potential to interact with, right? So I can pick up my coffee mug and I can do things with the coffee mug because it is within my proximity. But proximity is also itself not such an easily pinned down thing. It doesn't have I got a follow. Cool, thank you. I appreciate the follow, whoever that follow came from. That alert is still so darn quiet. But that's all right. Good, thank you. I appreciate the follow. Right. So but our phenomenal sphere of influence extends beyond our reach, right? I can pick up and augment the things that are within my reach, but I can also get up and move my reach to some other place. I can put my phenomenological sphere in its own unique place so that I can augment different things. So it's not a static thing, and it's not even limited there. It's less limited than that, because I can send a letter to somebody and contact them and influence some other person and influence their whole sphere of reality from where I am in real place and time. I can do that by sending a letter in the mail. Or I can do that by logging into the internet and talking to other humans who are in other places around the world, right? My phenomenological sphere doesn't end at my person. It doesn't end at the stuff around me that I can touch. I go online and I make videos that other people can watch later when I'm not even there. So I can transcend temporally all of the confines of my time and place, and I can influence and change the world in meaningful ways, beyond that which is just in my own mind, beyond my own body, beyond my own sphere of phenomenological experience, right? I can influence other people, I can influence other things, and I can do so through time and space, not only in the present. So these are all ways that we are not bound by the common understandings of our relationships to the world. right, and that's I think but to compare though, this idea of phenomenology and the phenomenological sphere of influence that I have is a much more expanded upon idea of metaphysics than anything that had come before phenomenology in Western philosophy, but still doesn't nearly encompass the wholeness of unity that is being expressed here. That I think maybe I will now make some comparisons to Taoism, where I guess I'll begin at the beginning. So with Taoism, at some point there is one, and this one is all by itself, it is whole, and it is everything. At some point, that one recognizes that there are distinctions to be made within it. Distinctions form two. So the one makes a distinction between itself and that which is not it, forming what you're commonly recognize as the yin and yang sign, right? It looks like it's two opposing forces in one circle, but it's not two opposing forces. It is one. It is one which has recognized that there are differences and that those differences bring variation. From this variation, all of creation springs or differences. From the recognition births the third, right? So this is how we get things that are not all the same thing. Why we don't live in mayonnaise, right? Is that at some point there was some recognition that there's something within the unity that is all not the same thing. And from this, we have a cascade of divisions, right? That which recognizes differences all now become their own unities with the ability to recognize differences within themselves, among and between themselves. But all always still one. In the Tao, everything is all one. We are all God. We are all part of Atman, that makes up reality. We are all part of that. We're all part of. I might have to pull up my slideshow. Okay. Atman is your place in it. Dharma is the rules and the boundaries and the structure that give distinctiveness to the things that we recognize as being different things. That's what Dharma is. It's the order of things being not all the same, is Dharma. And our Atman is how we fit in the unity of things. I'm trying to think of what the name for the unity of things is. We can just pull this up here too. I delete. Oh, I'm in the wrong. I'm in the wrong scene selection. That's why I can't find the thing I'm looking for. Because I'm in the wrong scene selection. Something ain't right about that. Something ain't right about that still, but that's okay. This will work. Actually works out quite well. It looks like it's going to fit the whole PowerPoint in there quite nicely. We're not going to talk about all of this stuff. We're going to talk about Brahman, the ultimate reality underlying all phenomenon. So this it's helpful, I think, to have a visual aid. So it's probably a good idea that I pulled this up. So Brahman is the ultimate reality underlying all phenomenon. That's the material world that we find ourselves in. Atman is your true self. That's who you are, what you are, where you are supposed to fit, and how you are supposed to fit, is your Atman. Dharma represents order, truth, and the ultimate universal law, or a good way that we can think about it. If this mandala is all of existence, then Dharma is the borders and boundaries between what you identify as discernible shapes or colors within the mandala, right? When you look at things and you see the various shapes and you recognize that those shapes are distinct, what you are using is Dharma to structurally identify the difference of things that are not the same thing. And so, yeah, that's what I was trying to remember, this word, Brahman. So I think that there really are some commonalities too, in that there is no separation or between our existences. We exist as one. It's all still one. But how identity is formed is, I guess that would be probably the biggest difference, is how identity comes to be formed in these different systems. No, not really, because it's both a natural relationship that's born out of just your being in time and place where you are, but it also has to do with your relation to your ancestors and to your family and to your historical materialism, but also in that you have the choice to choose for yourself. It seems, if I'm understanding this philosophy correctly, it seems as though those structures are really quite the same in shape and character and in ends. Their product, right? Us. Good. But I really, I think that this was a really good work. And I feel like I've learned quite a great deal from having read through it. And I'm so happy to have expanded my understanding of Maori philosophy. Not expanding, like this is me building a kernel. This is I'm not expanding knowledge. This is me building a kernel of knowledge about Maori philosophy. So good. Thank you for the update, Matt. That's just that's news. Don't want to come off as I don't want to come off as, what's the word, discompassionate, per se. But I'm not really upset either. I would like to know some more about it. It's when I took the break and I put on the Rat Castle song and was or Castle Rat, sorry, excuse me, the Castle Rat song, and I was resting my mouth and voice. My roommates actually that's they got my attention, and they were like, hey, did you hear about this? Here they got the person in custody. There was some speculation as to whether Charlie Kirk was in critical condition or had died at the scene. It might be the case that they released that information, not in the order in which it happened, right? But yeah, thank you for that update. I mean, I'm not that upset about it. Yeah, have fun with that one, Satan. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not really that upset about it. So, if I mean, I guess I should take it a little bit more seriously, and say that it is unfortunate that Charlie Kirk will now no longer have the opportunity to live his life like somebody who is not a complete piece of shit. So there is some tragedy, right? Charlie Kirk will not now ever have the opportunity to not be a massive, horrible, awful piece of shit human being. So there's there's my so I think the patriarchal dialectic fits my Earth is a Who article. And the Earth is a Who, I think, really is pretty fantastic as an idea. Heard from people reviewing it that the analogy gets them to understand dialectics more. Well, and that absolutely tracks, right? That when we and I like that this article, the way that you phrase that makes me think about this, where it talks about an attitude that has become or is becoming irrelevant. Right, here we go. This translation relies on the primacy of a human subject, a notion that is rapidly becoming analytically irrelevant. And this is such a good sign. This is the right way to go. And what you're saying there is that's what it is. It's rather than us having this anthropocentric centered view where we see everything in existence as an instrument for our ability, and instead back that view up, right? And we don't have to invent God, right? We don't have to imagine a constituting consciousness for Emmanuel transcendental reasoning. We don't have to invent God, and we don't have to invent a constituting consciousness for our transcendentalism. We can just look to the planet on which we live and recognize that it is a thing worthy of recognition as a being which is being in time in the same way that you are a being in time. There is no difference. Its experience of time and space and being in time is the same kind of experience. You just happen to be conscious and able to express yourself in ways that others that are very much like you can articulate. Maybe our planet can too, and we just can't understand it yet. Maybe it's articulating it to itself to us all the time, and we're so busy making an instrument of everything in our immediate vicinity that we can't listen to what it's trying to tell us or communicate to us, right? That maybe we're the problem. He was never going to seize that opportunity. That is the tragedy. Okay. I'm not going to push back against that. I guess that works too. I said that it'll radicalize the right and lead to escalation. That's true. That there is that sad point, Matt, that it will lead to radicalization. James Lovelock, I'm familiar with the name James Lovelock. Oh, you're asking somebody else anyway. It sounds familiar, but I'm not sure why that rings a bell for me. Can't close any of those other things. Futurist. Hey, the Gaia hypothesis. Okay. I gotcha. That tracks. That's good. Yeah, he has the Gaia theory, right? Vanishing face of Gaia? Good. That's a good recommendation. Add in that one. Good. Yeah, absolutely. Good. Well, all right. I think I'm gonna wrap it up. I think that this has been a really great stream, and I got accomplished pretty much what I wanted to. I thought that I was going to spend more time talking about the relationship between identity and free will, but I also had thought that I was going to have more time to plan before stream today, and I kind of didn't. But I am getting there. I mentioned earlier that I'm readjusting how I think about myself and my relationship to my work, and I think that I'm moving in a direction that's more healthy and will improve my efficiency. I was talking about this early. No, absolutely not. Sorry, my dialectic ramble probably slowed it down. Not at all. You were extremely helpful in helping me get through the ideas and get across what I was hoping to accomplish. I was the one that kept getting distracted. But that's me. And that's okay. It's not a big deal either way. But we did get through it in a reasonable amount of time. I've only been streaming for 3.5 hours. I thought that I was going to get to the 4-hour mark today, but like I said, I feel like it's a good spot to call it. I feel pretty tired. I feel like I need to let my brain rest a little bit, so I stop tripping over my words so much. And I want to be able to start looking at some of the stuff that you guys have recommended for reading, and I'm not going to be able to do that until I let my rest some. So I'm going to go rest my brain, and take it a little bit easy for a little bit. So we are going to raid into somebody else, of course. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day as well. Yeah, that's I didn't realize that I was doing such a poor job before. Yes, please share your article in the Discord. If there's a particular place that more appropriate for it. But what I was saying is I didn't realize that I was not doing a good job of staying grounded. But I was doing a terrible job of it. And really what it was is, again, there's a lot that I would like to accomplish, so far as having individual projects and goals, things that I want to make real. I've got a lot of stuff that I'm trying to do, a lot of stuff that's on my plate. And because all of the stuff is valuable and important, I take it very seriously. And I was putting myself in a constant state of accomplish, where I to really state it bluntly, I wasn't allowing any time for me to wax philosophically. I wasn't allowing myself any time to be present in my real life. I spent so much time chasing the things that I wanted to accomplish for my future, right? That I was spending all of my time in my future with everything that I'm doing right now. I'm just trying to read this so I can do that. I'm trying to get this out of the way so I can do that. And I wasn't spending any time I wasn't spending enough time in my present, in being mindful with myself in my present. So yeah, I'll try to stay grounded. Good. Oh, and I was looking in the Discord to see if there was a more or less appropriate place to put it. It might fit under the logic of perspective deep dives. That might be a good place. Actually, you can put it in the self promote too. Though that's people aren't going to think to look there for that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's probably the best place to put it. Is there in the deep dives? Yeah, I think that and that's the other thing that I'm trying to work on is being able to multitask. For those of you who are not multitaskers like me, I am not a multitasker. But I'm trying to practice. What I'm trying to do is well, I'll talk about that some other time. Maybe we'll have a whole conversation where I talk about that later. Good. I think that's where I want to go. Let's go raid into... Oh. No, that didn't work. So we'll try again. We'll shoot a second time. And probably go into ADT. Yeah. Yeah. Let's raid into A Difficult Truth. I've talked about how much I like to watch their news and how they cover the news because they do so in a very chill and relaxed manner. I have a hard time talking about the news in a very chill and relaxed manner, so I appreciate them being able to do so. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your contributions. Kimatara, you were here at the very beginning of the stream, and you have been extremely invaluable in getting the conversation moving forward, and I really appreciate all of that. Matt, fantastic job being a chatter and being a mod too, and doing some of those mod duties, even though you're not like officially a mod. I appreciate you doing some of that stuff and being here. Nisa, it is always a pleasure to see you. I'm always thrilled with the contributions you add in chat. Fantastic Kitty, it was great that you stopped by. As you're watching the VOD, I'm saying hi to you again. It's great to see you. DJ Che, thank you for the raid. I hope that you're having a great day. Street Cat Love, I appreciate you stopping in, hanging out, and everything. Oh, Jane, can't forget Jane, Chris KS. You're all fantastic. Thank you.